beginning with, in dignity is different, but also elsewhere, Sipur Migdal Babel, the Tower of Babel, and Noah. And these for him are his universal paradigms. We don't know where they happen, we don't know who they happen to, okay? But they're big kind of paradigms of universalism. And it says the whole story of the Jewish people, the particularism, starts at that moment when Avraham Avinu is commanded to go. And that is a particularist command, and that also makes sense in terms of the Jewish minority and modernity and how that plays out within the collective. So I think let me just finish my sentence. So in parallel to that, I think there is also a move from the universal to the particular that he does try to sustain and does sustain all the way through. So I think it would be interesting to track that in terms of the rise of religious fundamentalism.
That's Walter. But Rabbi Sachs, because the first layer is always the universal layer. But when you go to Rabbi Sachs, the way you see Babel, which is very important in his thought, you see the collapse of the universalism. You see the feeling of proud of human being about the Tower of Babel, but then the collapse to different languages. And this is the beginning of the tikkun, and then will come Abraham, who will bring the right way of the tikkun. So it's not only that there are two layers of universalism and then particularism, and when you need your universalism when you are particularistic, but that the main thing is the particularistic, spiritual, moral way of Abraham. That's where I differ from you, and I think that's what Rabbi Sachs meant.
We can continue the conversation.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just have a question for Professor Meredith, yeah. So you spoke about Rabbi Sachs, being disturbed about the move from Gemeinschaft to Gesellschaft, but he said, but he doesn't idealize the Gemeinschaft. And then you had a quote about, his opposition to any type of political imposition of uniformity or limiting any type of freedom. But the way I understood the problem with Gemeinschaft is more not political than social. Namely, that there's a social consensus. On the face-to-face type of community, you enforce conformity through consensus, through gossip, through social pressure. And that becomes the problem, which can actually sometimes be more powerful than political. My favorite story about Chametz, but anyway. So I just wondered if Rabbi Sachs addresses this problem with the community and the problem of imposed social conformity.
Okay, so thank you. And so I think that the solution perhaps that Rabbi Zacharias suggested to us is many different communities, many different types of congregations, associations, living side by side in a given society. And once those values are not imposed by the state, but they are taken by each individual and who decides to join a certain community, the solution of an imposition of collective values towards the members of these communities is excellent. But you just move to a different community. Now that's not a perfect solution, but that would be the middle solution. I think that's what Zach suggested. There's a big literature on the right to exit from communities, but I don't know if Zach's wrote about that, but that would be kind of the standard response. I think it's a good response.
I mean, the whole issue about leaving communities, even if theoretically they're voluntary, you try to leave certain communities, which I won't mention any names, it's very difficult. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Yes, so I'll just try and speak up. Fascinating. I enjoyed every speech so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Microphone, mic.
Yeah, I just won't say anything important.
No.
Tell the designated downstairs.
I'll be online. it seems to me that the Home Deal together, though I think we're right to put so much emphasis on it because it is such a central work in its political thinking. It was written, I think, very much with Western European states in mind, and the only place I think where he really tries concertedly to apply his political philosophy to the Israeli context, it is in future tense, which you get to at the end. Now, I wondered, really from the first two speakers in particular, but all three of you, because the third speaker said something I think is quite funny and true. I think a lot of people in the religious science community read Rabbi Sachs, but there's a good section of them that when he gets to something a bit political, they kind of gloss over that bit and just enjoy the drasha of other parts. I want to know, do you think there are any political activists or political scientists or public intellectuals in Israel who are actively trying to realise what was really quite a broad brushstroke vision there in future tense? That's to say, the creation of a covenant that all Israelis, irrespective of their religion, would feel that they were part of. The spinning of a narrative that was somehow inclusive of all the communities. Is that actually on the kind of political, intellectual agenda at all? Or is it something we can hope will emerge in the future?
There are some, the minority within Orthodox Jews in Israel, modern Orthodox or intellectual modern Orthodox, some of them rabbis, some of them academians, intellectuals try to work. I see some of them here. We are not too many, but try to build something like that. The fact is that none of us has the same of importance as Rabbi Sachs had because he wasn't in Israel. Because he wasn't in Israel.
They can do right.
Then it's like it's not the same, but like Rabbi Soloveitchik. Rabbi Soloveitchik wanted to be chief rabbi of Israel in 1935. He wasn't elected. Rabbi Amiel was elected. Who remembers Rabbi Amiel? Yeah, very few people. Who remember Rabbi Amiel? And Rabbi Soloveitchik, Baruch Hashem, stayed in America and raised thousands of rabbis and inspired so many Jews. And in a very complex vision, Rabbi Sachs was influenced by Rabbi Soloveitchik, of course. So that you can do when you are abroad. Maybe that's why he's great hero, the Rebbe of Chabad, the Chabadski Rebbe, because of him he became a rabbi and so much influenced other people, changed all his life. He was in America. It's easier.
Okay. If I can add a word to that, in 2001 here at the university, there was this dialogue between Rabbi Sachs and the author Amos Oz, which was moderated by Professor Jonathan Reinhold. And I thought
heard of it.
What?
Never heard of it.
I think it's related to the other.
And I thought, what can be the the basis for the good relations that they had? At least if you read the dialogue, it seems very warm and very friendly conversation. And you think, okay, but in the 1989 book, Rabbi Sachs, Traditional Alternatives, he is quite critical of secular Zionists. He called them secularists, which I think Amos Oz would be one of them. But if we take into account, for example, one of the recent books of Amos Oz, Jews and Words, you see that, surprisingly, he holds the same view of what Judaism is, in the sense that it is not an ethnic group. It is something that's in words, it's something in tradition, in culture. So for Rabbi Sachs, of course, it would be the laws of the Torah define who is Jewish and what Judaism is about. And Amos Oz would have a much dynamic understanding of the tradition. But still, you can find partners of the views of Rabbi Sachs in different segments of society.
I must add, I was there and I spoke to Amos Oz after that conversation, and Amos Oz told me privately that everybody sees me as some sort of a leader of secularism in Israel. If I wouldn't see the religious orthodox in Israel, I would define myself as religious. Okay? And Rabbi Sachs told him then that if you want really to be a secular, you must live in Israel. Because outside Israel, you won't survive.